Let me make clear that what I am saying is that Mike Doyle is going to be America's second Benedict Arnold. The original Benedict Arnold in the Revolutionary War did not succeed in turning over the strategic military institution of West Point over the Hudson to the British, which would have defeated the American Revolution. However, if the health care bill is not repealed, Mike Doyle will have succeeded in defeating the American experiment by overthrowing the U.S. Constitution and bringing in the socialism, by bringing in the votes, the Stupak votes needed to bring in socialism. Mr. Doyle his record indicates that he's a radical supporter of socialism. I remember several years ago, I discovered this several years ago when the hard arguments he made for the McCain-Feingold campaign, so-called campaign finance bill that curtailed free speech, political speech during election campaigns. And Mike Doyle argued hard for this bill and the various features of it that curtailed this American institution, this premier American institution of free speech. It shows a disregard for the principles of the American Constitution. How do you view the institution of marriage, and what will you do to protect families and marriage?
I believe that the marriage is sacred, and it is between one man and one woman. And I would support a constitutional amendment that states that. And
is there a reason that we need that amendment today?
I don't believe that we need an amendment. I believe that it is what it is. I don't think that being that we have no state religion, I don't think that our government needs to come into my church and tell me how my church should react. Or what my church needs to do. I don't think we need a constitutional amendment.
If we don't have, like, the National Defense of Marriage Act by Congress, it says something like that the only marriage that is going to be recognized in this country is between a man and a woman. And that should be something that doesn't need to be said. I do not view this as the government telling our church what to do. I view it as the government trying to stop other people from changing the law and telling us two men can marry and things like this, because if that were to get into the law, it would have a profound effect. All of the marriage laws in all the states would have to be changed. So,
but I then agree with you, because I think then you get a slippery slope. What else could you?
Where do you stand with regards to the Second Amendment?
I am pro Second Amendment. Again, constitutional right. We have the right to defend ourselves in our homes, and I am pro Second Amendment.
Okay. One of the in each one of these amendments in the Bill of Rights are being challenged today. They try to reinterpret the meaning of the words. Like the First Amendment, it's the Establishment Clause that has been twisted out of shape. The wording of that Establishment Clause is Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion. And then there's the Exercise Clause, or prohibiting the free exercise of religion. Prohibiting free exercise of religion would apply to any individual or even churches of worshiping the way they want to worship. The government cannot, by the free exercise clause, interfere with your religious practice. But the making no law with respect to the establishment of religion, this is what the ACLU back in the 1940s used to start separation of church and state in motion. The words themselves, the establishment of religion, it would be like an establishment of business. The Supreme Court twisted that and said in 1946 or 7, around thereabouts, and said that any religious expression, they called that an establishment of religion. Any prayer, in their new definition, would be an establishment of religion. and your reference to God. But the words themselves say that they show the intent that the founders meant. It would have organization, it would have property, bylaws, and all such things. And so they use that language to show that an establishment of religion essentially means what we would call churches. It's not a prayer, it's not a phrase, and we have to get back to that truth. Mm-hmm. So with the Second Amendment, we'll go back historically to the context of 1776. It was a largely agricultural society with farms, and people had guns normally as a normal course of life, so they owned guns. And it was those guns in the Minutemen that were used to be organized. Those people with their guns, in part, were used to form the well-disciplined militias. The 14th district has a historically voted for Democrats. Pittsburgh and Central Allegheny County has become a blue area. Can you change that in 2010 November election?
Well, the things we were talking about and the principles and values that I was saying that I'm running on, accountability, transparency, liberty and limited government, and national security, they are not Republican or Democrat issues. They are American issues. They are American values, American principles. And from just going out and getting signatures that I needed to get on the petitions when I needed to do that to get myself on the ballot, we were at households that were not just Republican. This is a district that's 80% Democrat, registered Democrat, 20% Republican. Some households, there were one spouse was Democrat, one was Republican, and we were talking to Democrats as well, and many of them felt the same way. They were ready for something different. They were unhappy with what was going on. They were unhappy with the incumbent, and as I said, these are not Democrat or Republican issues. These are American issues, American principles, and I certainly believe that the entire district will resonate with that.
Yes, I've met a number of Democrats. Some of them at one time were committeemen, and are still in Allegheny County here, associated with. Now they have relatives who are pretty higher up in the county Democratic Party, but they are changing party because of just what you said. That which was really what a lot of others of us did a long time ago. But now that we've come to the point, crossing over the line of socialized medicine, attempting to, it's scaring. I think it's scaring a lot of them into changing course. What of some of your goals should you be elected to the House of Representatives?
Well, I think with one of the very first goals we need to address is bringing the deficit down. We need to bring the deficit down. We need to cut taxes so that we can encourage economic activity and opportunities that will then create jobs. The government doesn't create jobs, but if we increase economic activity, if we cut the deficit, that leads to job creation. The best form of job creation are people having money in their pockets, businesses having money in their pockets to spend. And that's what we need to start concentrating on, getting our economy back on its feet.
That cutting taxes means it has other rather profound consequences. One is, without money, government can't grow. With lower taxes, as you're saying, industry can expand. And this has been proven, I think, 3 times, starting with President John Kennedy. That Democrat in the 1960s really introduced, at least in recent times, the first tax cut for the purpose of expanding the economy, and it worked. And Reagan did it again, in the 1980s, and it got us out of a recession again. And Bush did it more recently, and it helped too.
It's about expansion of economy, limit of government. As I said again, liberty and limit of government. We need to limit the government. We have been expanding the government. Mm-hmm. We need to limit the government, period. And what we have been doing is expanding it. That's exactly what the healthcare bill has done. 157 new agencies. I don't know how anybody can stand there. I don't care what the CBO has said. I believe those numbers. The CBO can only evaluate, the Congressional Business Office can only evaluate the numbers it's given, and it was given the numbers by the Democrats and by the president. And so it was coming out with these grossly inflated or underinflated numbers. And how can you tell me that the creation in that healthcare bill of 157 new government agencies, the unleashing on us, assuming Americans have over 16,000 new IRS agents, isn't going to cost us more money. To me, that's ridiculous. And I think any American, anybody hearing that, I don't care what kind of evaluation you can give me from the CBO, that doesn't make sense. That's an expansion of government. That's a lot more money. And I believe our taxes will increase and the economy will just fold.
Are you in favor of the repeal of the health care combined with issues that will reduce the cost of health care?
Yes, I actually signed the repeal it pledge to repeal the health care bill. And I believe there are better alternatives. We can have health savings accounts. You can take it from job to job. You take your health savings account from job to job, so you have it portable. You break down the barriers between state lines so that you have competition between 2,000 healthcare insurance companies. That competition, that's what brings costs down.
In other words, the way it is now, state insurance commissioners in every state limit to 2 or 3 maybe. In
Correct.
Pennsylvania, what do you have, 2 insurance companies?
We have 2 very large insurance companies and then several smaller ones. But I would say even in this area, you have competition between 2 very large insurance companies and several smaller ones. But if we break down the state lines, you have 2,000 plus that we can have competition between. And then you have a health insurance that you find that you like and you can take it from job to job. And then one huge aspect, and that's tort reform.
Yeah, court reform, yeah.
Exactly.
To stop the
non-economic
abuses.
damages, right, exactly. And that's one that was not even addressed.
That's when people sue McDonald's for $1 million because they spilled coffee on themselves, that type of thing. It's not has to do with loss of time and energy, time or resources. It doesn't have to do with health expenses. It's just something inflated that burdens the economy.
And for the most part, a lot of the lawsuits that are out there, the money doesn't go actually to the person who was actually injured, and it doesn't actually reform the problem that was there in the first place. It doesn't make it better physicians. It doesn't make the healthcare any better. So you need to reform the system.
Now something I can add, I've heard of a group of physicians saying they put a figure on, I don't know how many $300 billion costs, part of medical costs is due to malpractice insurance that the doctors have to pay, and then the extra tests they have to order to cover themselves against these malpractice, these excessive lawsuits. And all of these things that have been mentioned so far actually would go toward lowering the cost of medicine. And that is not addressed in this healthcare bill. They never, socialism just wants to give more money just to cover everything over. It's more for political power than any sensible other reason, I think. What other structural issues would you plan to address?
We need to, well, definitely the illegal immigration, couldn't get that out. That's a huge issue right now, especially now that we have Arizona that basically wrote a law that reflects the federal law. And I don't think the problem that is out there that's been big news is the law itself, because it reflects the federal law.
It duplicates the federal law.
The problem is the enforcement, the fact that Arizona is actually going to enforce
and they
the
need
law.
to enforce
and
it.
they need to enforce it. And that's
because
what
people are getting killed out there, property is being stolen, people are being murdered, ranchers are being murdered.
60 miles from the border of Arizona, the fact that you can't leave your house left alone for more than 20 minutes, otherwise
someone will come in
into 60 miles from the border. This isn't on the news. This isn't being heard of. And we're so far away, we don't hear the stories unless you know. And I do know, I have friends who live in Arizona, and so I hear the stories directly from people who live there, and it's very scary. And we need to do something about it federally, which is enforcing. And we have an e-verify system, which is the electronic verification system, where we need to put that into place. It's 99.9% accurate, where you verify, the businesses put it into place, they verify the Social Security numbers of the people who work for them, and then businesses can be held accountable. And then by attrition, you will have illegal immigrants leaving the country, and then we have enforcement.
Is there anything you'd like to say in conclusion?
You can go to my website. It's www.melissaforcongress.com.